Good afternoon and welcome to the latest IIRSM South East branch webinar and the last one for 2023. So today I'm delighted to welcome a colleague of mine, Chris Sibley, who's going to present to us and I'll introduce Chris and the subject matter in a moment. But I first wanted to share just a short reminder that the IIRSM Risk Excellence Awards are once again upon us, and applications are closing at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 7th February 2024. And for those of you that know them, this is our opportunity to recognise the outstanding contributions that are made in the field of risk and safety management, but also to champion our commitment to shaping a safer and healthier world. The awards evenings in 2024 will be held on the 23rd of May, and you can find further details either on the IIRSM website or hopefully shortly there'll be a link posted in the chat function which accompanies this webinar. So back to the webinar. As I said, I'm delighted to welcome Chris Sibley, EMCOR UK's Head of Safety Operation. Chris has over 30 years experience within a diverse range of global business sectors in the roles of health, safety, environment, quality and facilities. And Chris has held numerous roles to board director level in both land and maritime organisations, both nationally and internationally. And currently Chris is responsible for providing safety operational leadership and safety and risk intelligence support across all of EMCOR UK's accounts, and has ownership of the delivery of a progressive and integrated physical and psychosocial safety agenda. So without stealing any of Chris's thunder, this webinar is going to explore the linkages between OSH and DE&I, and of course the need to respond to this growing demand to create a more inclusive OSH frameworks and programmes, and to expand the occupational health and safety beyond the traditional realms. If you do have any questions as we go along, then please post in the Q&A function, and we'll try to address these at the end. And please also note that we are recording this webinar and it will be available very shortly on the IIRSM YouTube channel. So Chris, thank you once again for joining us, and I'm going to hand directly over to you.
Thank you, Matt, and hi everybody. Although I can't see you on my screen, hopefully I know everyone's there, and no pressure then, Matt, having to present in front of my boss, but I just wanted to run through a number of slides which really outline what we're doing at EMCOR UK with regards to the ED&I and OSH perspective. And I hope that the whole of this presentation takes you on a journey, as I always imagine that we're working from our strategic objectives right the way down from our leadership commitment, right the way down to what we implement out in the workplace. And I'm going to introduce, if you haven't already heard it, for a term that we are faced with from our executive leaders, the so what. And the so what will form quite a fundamental part of this presentation. But without wasting any more time, I shall just run you through the quick agenda. So a quick run through of the agenda. So at EMCOR UK, we always start with a safety, diversity and inclusion moment, and I would like to do the same today. I wondered what we should talk about, but on the training course a couple of weeks ago, a slide was brought up from the presenter, and it's something I've seen before, and it's something that I find very thought-provoking. And it was an absolute given, especially with regards to the call today. So with regards to the main presentation, I hope, as I say, it takes you on a journey, one that will guide you from our executive leadership commitment and the execution and implementation from our integrated ED&I and OSH culture and framework within EMCOR UK. So we'll start with the diversity moment. We'll look at our culture. It's our purpose, our vision, our audiences, our values, our safe and secure value, which is very much specific to what we do and under Matt's guidance with regards to the WSA team, and certainly from my perspective as safety operations. Active and ambitious is another value which we have, and it's part of our creating balance groups. A commitment with regards to our policies, people who care, another value. We don't do it to people, we do it with people, building on relationships, and this is the inclusion of our supply chain partners. Fundamental to our success at EMCOR UK is our supply chain partners. It also forms part of what some of our biggest risks, and understanding what those risks are our day-to-day activities through our safety ops department, and certainly out into our wider audiences, working with our procurement, supply chain management teams. Be there for life, our whole process and approach to physical and psychological risk, and the so what. What is adding value and effective change? And I'll talk a little bit about our Be There for Life, which I'm very passionate about. It's something that we created within the department, or we redeveloped within the department. And it really just focuses on both the physical and the mental side of risk. So something that, as I say, that has been an integral part to the way that we've evolved over the last year or so under our 45,001 and 45,003 standards. So I wanted to introduce, if you haven't already seen this film, I would strongly urge you to watch this. And it's about accident statistics do not provide assurance that risk is being reliably managed. Deepwater Horizon is about the measuring of when things go wrong. In short, they were measuring the wrong things and were satisfied that the absence of incidents and accidents was enough to assure them that risk was being well managed. So the questions which always arise from this is, so was it a lack of leadership or a lack of governance? And for those of you who have seen the film, as I say, slightly fictionalized, but there are details within the film that certainly the scene with Mark Wahlberg talking through the sheer volume of things that were wrong with that rig before it exploded that completely outweighed anything that was coming from the BP Vice President of Drilling, Patrick O'Brien, saying that they had not had a lost time incident within that certain period of time. So 7 years they had measured the fact that they hadn't had a lost time incident, and yet inherent failures were happening within that rig. So the real problem was that Deepwater Horizon disaster was years in the making, over a period of time and ill investment in what was actually what actually mattered with regards to the safe and effective and efficient running of that rig. That wasn't being addressed. It was simply focused on that metric of lost time incident. BP and Transcom created a culture that normalized behaviors and decision making. And this brought about an unavoidable tragedy that rather what is now termed as normal accident. So this term is product of normalized decisions, and something that we focus on within the department is our normalization of risk through our behaviors, through our decision making, and through the fact that sometimes we're simply walking past things that were there yesterday, last week, last month, when we're more focused on what the accident statistics are telling us to actually realize what's going on base level. So do we accept the risk because there's not been a negative event, i.e. likelihood? All of these things through our risk assessment process. But with regards to Deepwater Horizon, the fundamental problem was the fact that they simply weren't measuring the right things. They were looking at the wrong things and celebrating those things. So what should we measure? If we look at goal setting, you can set arbitrary goals. However, this is often where the businesses get HSE performance wrong. We want to hit the number on this date, KPIs. So much focus on a KPI that we're simply not looking at how it was achieved. How do we achieve that goal is so much more important. The so what. I've mentioned it for the first time. You're going to hear that term, I think, throughout the course of the rest of this process. What sits behind that metric? How did we effectively discharge or reduce that risk? What have we learned from it? What happens if we miss the goal? What have we learned? What is being changed? What initiatives are being implemented in order to ensure that there's no repercussion of that or a significant reduction within that area? Key things that, as I say, from a safety ops perspective and also from our whole wellbeing, sustainability and assurance team, WSA, of which technical, safety, risk assurance, fleet, environment, social well-being, all of these social value, so all of these areas are encompassed. At MCOR UK, we follow simply a balanced approach. It's the ideology being is if we hit or if we undertake those proactive activities such as our inductions, appraisals, risk assessment reviews, leadership visibility, team talks, and set goals for continual improvement within those areas, by doing those proactive initiatives right, we're reducing the opportunity or the risk that those reactive stats, those accidents and incidents will occur. We don't talk about things such as making sure that we've hit a certain goal. We're looking at, we are clearly improving towards that goal. It's a mindset which has set, personally, with regards to me, looking at a much more balanced way of achieving what we're trying to get to. And this is, if anybody has read, there's a great book called Simon Sinek's Infinite Game, and it just sets my perception of what I'm trying to achieve whilst I am at safety ops within MCOR UK. And it's not about just making sure that I achieve a set goal by an end date. This is about leaving the organisation in a much better situation, a much better stance of which I joined it. And it's really something that I'm really enjoying working with the team in order to do that. It's about perpetuating that safety performance. It's about making sure that that safety performance is not measured on how we've achieved within 6 months. It's about measuring it over the next year after that, and going forward, and really aligns to what we're doing with regards to our strategic objectives. So everything drives down from our leadership commitment and that strategy that's been put in place, 3 to 5 year goals, and then ongoing from there. So no single measure provides an overriding indication of an organisation's success or failure in managing work-related risk. And these are probably key fundamental points that stick with my mind as I go through and we work on working with into our accounts in our organisation. So I just wanted to quickly run through that initial safety moment with you. We at MCOR, we like to undertake a safety moment before we go into our actual presentations. It's something that sets the scene. It's something that could be quite dissimilar to what we're actually going to present during the course of the hour, 2 hours that we have our audience. But it's something, as I say, Deepwater Horizon. If you haven't seen it before, it's worthwhile just having a sit down and have a watch for it. Not only is it a great film, but it also really uncovers that whole aspect of measuring the right and the wrong things when talking about risk. Okay, so that's the safety moment. So moving on to our culture. So who are we at MCOR UK? So very people-centric facilities asset management company working in some of the most complex and regulated places in the workplaces in the UK. So we have 30 plus accounts. We have a central function of which I'm part of with Matt, and we also then have numerous accounts in numerous very, very highly regulated spaces, MOD spaces, nuclear industries, so on and so forth, and pharmaceuticals. So you can imagine the diverse range of working environments in which we place incumbent support, and that could be management, it could be directors, it could be safety professionals, it could be a number of people from soft services, hard services, and all we're doing is we are providing a service to that organisation as they de-risk themselves of their service outputs and so can simply focus on the nature of their organisation while understanding that we are taking care of all of those facilities related and asset management related services. So as I say, if we start talking about complex environments, you can imagine that trying to retain a culture with an MCOR employee who's working in another facility quite remote to some of our central facilities and is influenced by that client, then that is an ongoing activity which we do through WSA and as a wider team in our organisation. And again, this is something that I wasn't used to when I first came to MCOR UK, but something that really provides some challenging areas and some very interesting areas about how we de-risk that relationship as we go into other accounts. EDI and OSH are integral to our mission, vision, values and culture. And the reason why this first slide is up is it really will start to give us our hierarchy of how we drive this through the organisation, from leadership commitment and our vision, better world of work, right the way through to our core audiences and values. So our vision, a better world at work, gives us all a just cause and drives our day. It's a commitment to our customers and defines where we're going. So our mission is what directs and guides us every day to deliver that we can be the very best for our audiences. And our core audiences, including our people, our customers, partners, and communities in which we work, as part of our social value, striving to create sustainable value for all. So our values inspire how we think and behave internally, guiding everything we do. They direct us, build and maintain positive relationships internally and externally, and help us sustain and evolve our culture. So working top down and bottom up, our leadership team are fully engaged and committed both strategically and operationally. And through our creating balance and culture groups, our colleagues in every discipline in the organisation help to influence and shape the decisions that through discussion and challenge. So being curious is fundamental to what we do. And to put it into perspective, we will, as a team, work together directly with other teams. It's about reducing or eliminating those silos. We will then present on a quarterly basis towards our executive leadership team how we're doing, how we're performing, how we're moving forward, how we're reaching those kind of milestones in order to keep perpetuating that safety performance. And this is something that's very integral to our development of our dashboards, our development of our culture with regards to be there for life that sits behind all this. That's not to say that we don't interact directly with our executive leadership team almost on a weekly or almost daily basis. And it's something that, again, really, really appreciative of the fact that I have open doors to both my immediate director, Matt, and also in some cases, my executive leadership, because to have that knowledge, the trust, and the confidence that these issues are being faced throughout the whole of the organisation is paramount in order to move forward. So I'll start with our culture and our vision, mission, core audiences and values. As we move forward, leadership have recognised the importance of physiological safety being part of a foundation of a wider business agenda. So what we see here, the Better World at Work leadership team, the Better World at Work operational team, creating balance steering groups, wellbeing leadership teams, creating balance focus groups, community of practice, and culture groups. So, as I say, psychological safety is part of the foundation of the wider business agenda. It's placed alongside, considered and implemented in the same manner as other more traditional strategic objectives and initiatives. From our vision, mission, and under our safe and secure value, creating balance and well-being forums are created. And I'll go into the creating balance forums just a little bit more on the next couple of slides, but you'll see how we're now integrating ED&I to OSH. ED&I through OSH, everything joins up, and it joins up through that whole network of steering groups, meetings, joint meetings between the numerous factors within the organisation, but also joint objectives, and even to the extent now where our new learning platform is based around our 4 values. So every time now we set our objectives right the way across the organisation, it's assigned to the strategic aim under those values. So we have a wellbeing, sustainability and assurance executive director, as we do an ED&I executive director, whose roles amongst many are to voice a strategic direction and alignment, and access to both of them and working with both of them in order to achieve our objectives, both personally and as a department. So a member of the EOT champions each of the creating balance groups. And as I say, I'll go into the creating balance groups in 2 minutes. Groups and forums form a fundamental part of the communication channel with MCOR UK. So how many on the call can confidently state that the message sent reaches those who are most likely to be at greatest risk. And the reason why I say that is it's an ongoing challenge for us. We have a number of communication channels, and we continually test those channels in order to make sure that communications that we might send out we are hoping to reach. And the reason why I say hoping is because the fact that in some occasions our message, I think, knocks on a door but doesn't quite reach that person who's turned up for 2 hours at the end of an evening as a cleaning operative, or the security guard who works overnight. And some of these people being at greatest risk for working outside of normal working hours or working overnight, as I say, in some of, even to the extent where lone working forms are part of some of what we do and some of the risks that we have to mitigate on a day-to-day basis. So communication, I believe everywhere that I've worked, communication has been fundamental to either determining whether or not we have risk in the organization or we are mitigating that risk through good communication, good consultation, and understanding what is happening within our organization. There was something that a term which is used, which I'm getting quite used to being used in front of me now, is work done and work imagined. So whilst we talk about how we believe our organizations are working, work imagined, from our offices or from where we're working, have we been given the opportunity or taken the opportunity more like to go out into our organizations, actually walk around in our accounts, in our working environments, and really understand what work done looks like? Because the gap between work done and work imagined, if we reduce that gap, then we are reducing the risk. And that's fundamental to what, as I say, these groups are doing. And as I say, the people who attend these groups are not necessarily senior leaders in the organization. These are people who are out in the organization, just colleagues who work in different environments who want to make a positive change. So we have quarterly enterprise meetings for shared learning for part of our culture groups. We have monthly culture groups in each of the accounts. And as I say, they're not so much led by senior leaders. In fact, in the most cases, some of these are not attended by health and safety or even well-being champions. They're attended by people who want to make positive change. And these are the people who might well be in those areas that we need to get that communication to. So really understanding how these groups work is fundamental to, and letting them do their work is fundamental to how we're moving forward. And as I say, the quarterly enterprise meetings, which I chair, brings all of those groups together to understand shared learning, experience, innovation, and so on. On a monthly basis, we have a community of practice as health and safety and technical leads, as well as our environment, and presentations, updates, priorities, best practice. So all of these forums and groups allow us to really work with the diverse range of disciplines that are undertaken within MCOR UK. So weekly, as head of safety operations, I sit with the most senior technical authorizing engineer, and we meet as I say, on a weekly basis. So the technical and safety assurance director is on the call, Matt. It's all about joint objectives, collaboration between teams. Again, I've not done this previously. The engineering team were always over there and the safety team were always over here. And yet, to me, fundamentally, this has driven some of the best practice that we've had going forward in MCOR UK. And it continues to be a learning curve for myself to understand what's happening in the engineering world. There's such a link between what the engineering teams, the technical teams, and what the safety teams do, that it just makes no sense to me now, having done it, having worked in that environment, that we should be working separate from each other. If we take things such as our Legionella controls, our HV, our LV, all of these things have safety implications. And although safety forms a fundamental part of what our technical teams are all about, and the more significant risks, it all really just the links between safety operations and the technical team are fundamental. So it's a multi-departmental approach to the development of policy and its implementation. And through the forums, we can identify areas of improvement. We noted previously that women's health network was very prevalent in the organisation. Men's health network didn't offer the same parity historically, so we needed to do more around this, and this was driven through the forums. And integral to all of this is the industry-leading approach to occupational safety and well-being. This, with what appears to be the HSE's drive on occupational health to mitigate risk in the workplace, instead of the doctor of surgeries, A&E, or walk-ins. And I think fundamentally, our occupational health and the way that we are now driving our occupational health from both reactive and proactive stances will be fundamental in the next at least 3 years going forwards, because of the burden and the pressure that are on the NHS at the moment. So I think a lot of, personally, I think we'll see legislation changing in and around these areas over the next few years, and a whole greater emphasis on what enterprises, what businesses are doing in their workplace in order to mitigate better occupational health and safety. So that is our teams. I'll go into a little bit more detail on each of these groups. So when we talk about our creating balance, we have 7 creating balance groups: ability, beliefs, culture, embrace, gender, generation, and identity. And embrace is a new one to us. It was just being developed. But each of these groups are attended by members of the organisation. Each of these groups have an executive leadership sponsor, and each of these groups have set objectives of what they want to achieve by the course of 2023, and we're now going into 2024. So in our drive to embed an authentic equality, a diversity and inclusion culture with MCOR UK, we generally contribute to the health, safety and wellbeing of our colleagues. The creating balance groups have been formed. So the ability enhances the equality and inclusion of those with physical learning, sensory impairments, and attracting new employees. So I'm a member of the ability group. It's something that I'm very keen to promote and to support. In fact, one of my objectives is to take us from a disability confident employer to disability confident leader. And that just takes us into that whole new phase of what we do internally with regards to our recruitment, with regards to our reasonable adjustments, with regards to acknowledging disabilities in the organisation, and how we address those, how we provide a workplace that people feel confident, trusting, and assured that they can talk to people about their disabilities and about the chances and the opportunities that we can give to also work on those adjustments and make their workplace a lot safer for them. Beliefs focused on improving the diversity and inclusion for all faiths and beliefs within the business. Culture represents and supports our colleagues from different ethnic backgrounds and cultures. And the group priorities inclusion for all, expanding the diversity within our business. Embrace, this is a new one for MCOR UK and represents the constant evolution of an inclusive environment. It relates to to an actively and openly communicating and consulting and learning with our supply chain partners. So I mentioned earlier on that our supply chain partners form fundamentally a huge percentage of our service provision. So treating them in the same way as we mentioned partners instead of contractors, but having them as partners in the organisation and actually accommodating everything that we do in the same way as we would our employees decreases that sort of risk. Having that open communication and collaboration. We have collaboration community of practices with our supply chain partners where we ask members of our supply chain to come in, just sit around a table and talk to us about how we're doing, how they're doing, what can we improve in order to make their task easier. And a lot of this, believe it or not, comes back to communication. How can we better communicate with them in a timely manner? So gender, mixed gender focus groups. A group works on ensuring there is equality for all genders in the workplace. and we are an equal opportunity employees, generations ensuring that regardless of age, you have the equality in the workplace, but understand the need of each multiple generation, and identity, supporting the LGBTQ plus community at MCOR UK. And this group is made up of people from this community and allies to it. So this one helps to educate colleagues to create a more inclusive environment where colleagues feel safe and secure and comfortable to bring their whole selves to work. So we're starting to work down through from our purpose, creating balance of better world at work, in through our values, and we're starting now to work down into our cultural areas such as our creating balance. And this, as you can see, starts to really merge our ED&I and our OSH together. Our commitment through policy developed jointly and implemented organisationally. So all of our policies are reviewed and updated annually, endorsed by senior leadership. The language is relevant to the current period, legislation changes, and considerate to our people. So and our management review, which is part of our standards approach, and we have 8 ISO standards. Through our management review, each of the policies are brought to the table prior to that management review, and they are again reviewed from our leadership team. So each of our executive leadership team will know what is on that policy as they will have signed it. In terms of an effective EDI, OSH, it needs to be driven from the top, and we have a specific policy in every area of OSH. And note that health, safety and wellbeing are one. The whole person approach. So this is the evolution of what started to be about this. And fundamentally, it's all about people, but 45,001, 45,003 are one standard to us, although we still audit it separately because the 45,001 standard sits with our integrated management system. It's fundamentally one standard, and we talk about that standard, or those 2 standards approach as one standard, as the whole person approach. So physical and psychosocial risk, mental and physical health and well-being, all comes under one banner, and it all comes under a banner which is discharged into the organisation, starting with our policies and right the way through into our Be There for Life culture. Note that so health, safety and wellbeing are one and form the foundations of our Be There for Life cultural framework. So as I say, a number of policies that are we now talk openly between departments about what is on those policies and how each of our departments affect the policy. When we start to draw up things such as health, safety and wellbeing, we'll review that policy with ED&I. We'll review that policy with social value, and we'll review that policy with HR, as we will review it with any other interested party to make sure that everybody has an influence of that, the content of that policy, and then it's signed by the most senior person within the organisation, which is our CEO. People who care. So ED&I and OSH are about people, our work colleagues, our partners, customers and communities. So I wanted to highlight 2 areas here really. Health, safety and HR work together. If we are committed to looking after occupational health and safety of all of our colleagues, why should we work in silos? And again, something that I was at a forum about a year ago, and there was quite a debate as to whether or not human resources worked closely with safety departments and what were the benefits of doing so. From my perspective, everything. It is all about people. And I think over a period of time, we've kind of drifted away from each other. And I think that's about time we should really start to merge back in, because there are a number of fundamental areas of risk that we can address between our 2 departments. So we meet again on a monthly basis, as I do with the ED&I and social value leadership team. So I meet with the human resources department, and we talk about not only just what's happened from a physical perspective, such as our absenteeism through potential absence and incidents or something that's happened during the course of the work, but also the mental well-being side of things and what has happened, or people who might be off work through mental health reasons, And that is getting closer and closer to understanding what we're doing with regards to our risk assessments, what we're doing with regards to our campaigns. All of those are focusing on our internal and external support mechanisms. So really kind of driving that whole emphasis on people and bringing them all under one banner. So we wanted to know what our employees felt. So a voice survey was the engagement with the employees, and we had a 76% response to the survey this year, which I believe is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. In some cases, not so much the responses you get, is how many responses you get. And in some cases, as I say, historically, we've only seen things such as in and around the 45–50% response to our surveys. So having a 76% response back this year was absolutely brilliant. And I hope, touch wood, that if we do it, we will be doing it again next year. And I hope that that figure increases. And if it does so, maybe that's an opportunity for us to think, right, so we are working. There is a tangible output to this. We're seeing something from the work we're doing on our joint approaches and our going out with regards to just relating to people. And hopefully that's working in the organisation. I believe it is. There are 8 ED&I related questions in the survey, and the feedback from our employees was reviewed directly by our executive leadership team. And we don't do it to people, we do it with people. So in our organisation, the leadership is relatively flat. Numerous layers of hierarchy can result in senior leadership being remote from what is really happening. And again, I mentioned about work done, work imagined. So being closer to the organisation is regarded as a leading performance indicator in MCOR UK. We have an initiative which sits under our Be There for Life, and it's the Balanced Scorecard, and it focuses on 6 leading indicators and 4 lagging indicators. And one of the leading indicators that has been highlighted on numerous accounts is simply identifying whether or not there has been visible leadership on the account or any in those areas of the account during the course of that month. And it really is quite a trigger for us to say to our senior leaders, just get out into the organisation, speak to people, understand what's going on. And these things are happening, and they're making a tangible effect on what we're doing. And culturally, just making sure I'm to time. So integral to our success is the close relationship with our supply chain partners. So I've already mentioned this. Our continual journey with regards to OSH and EDI extends into our supply chain. So we talk openly about our OSH and EDI as into our supply chain, and we question our supply chain about what they're doing with regards to their journey. We discuss and improve ways in which we protect, respect, learn from, learn with, and better exceed the expectations of our customers. If we can work closer with our supply chain partners, not only do we reduce risk, we also enhance the service that is being provided to our customers. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're all about. So we do this in face-to-face meetings, community of practices and conferences, I mentioned earlier. And last November, we had 200 people engaged in a process in the Motor Museum, I believe it was, where we presented Be There for Life, but also gave an opportunity for each table to respond back to 5 questions which were brought up on a screen. Quite clear questions about challenging about what we're doing, working with that supply chain partner, and what we can do better. And it was really quite an insightful day, and something that the feedback was exceptional from some of the bigger supply chain partners, who said that this is probably one of the first times that this had been undertaken, and they weren't used to us doing or used to being part of these processes. I mentioned Be There for Life earlier on, something that, as I say, I champion and I'm very, very passionate about. So it was founded on our values, 45,001, 45,003. It's evolved as we've gone through a behavioural safety program in our organisation with an external company that we've partnered with, that really just identifies some of the behaviours in some of our accounts that we want to change. Not necessarily all of them, but some behaviours that we want to change, and it's very focused on those areas. So the whole person approach is fundamental to our risk management approach and forms the basis of both proactive and reactive initiatives. So integrating physical and mental health risk is also promoting a closer working relationship with our human resources, I mentioned earlier on, and ensuring proactive occupational health surveillance is aligned to a more reactive referrals and our relationship with our external support partners. So 6 segments of the Be There for Life framework, underpinned by 12 practical initiatives which are evident in all of our accounts. So we haven't just got the emphasis on 6 key components. We're actually then providing tangible activities and implementation of these initiatives which feed into those segments and give us an output from it. So this comes off the wall. It's not just our framework, it's actually working in all of our accounts. And this is what we are measuring our, more or less, our balanced scorecard against. It also measures things such as the implementation of our culture groups. It gives us a real good idea from both a physical and social aspect of how we are doing, and provides us, as I say, with some of the tangible outputs to say we are moving forward. That might be a percentage, it might be a response to something, it might be attendance at some of our forums, which we're constantly and actively encouraging in order to get the communication going and in order to make sure this reaches every aspect of the organisation. Be There for Life conversations are conversations both from a well-being and safety perspective. Leaders of this organisation, leaders of our organisation, who go out and actively talk to somebody in that account. It's about just without agenda. It's going out and saying, how are you doing? What are you doing? Are you working safely? What can I do in order to enhance that? Or what can I do in order to change the way that you're working for a more safe or mental health perspective? Extremely powerful stuff. And it's down to us to understand what the output is from that. It's about making sure that there's that feedback in place. It's making sure that there are actions resulting from that, because I don't ever want to lose the incredible proactive reporting culture that we have in MCOR UK, because it's fundamental to our success. The so what, I mentioned this earlier on. The Wellbeing, Sustainability and Assurance team, WSA team, are made up of occupational health, safety, ED&I and risk, I mentioned earlier on. So we have joint objectives to meet and to discuss combined strategies regularly, as well as monthly meetings. So we continue to improve, create and implement, and we are always challenged by the leadership team. So what? So if we sit in front of our senior leaders and present them with a dashboard that has a number of figures, some of them might be green, some of them might be red, depicting whether or not by comparison we are doing better than previous year, maybe previous 3-year average, or they might be red, in which case we are doing worse. Obviously, the so what sits behind it. It's not about just simply looking at the figure. It's understanding the actions which we are either doing to continue that promotion of that positive trend, or what have we learned and what are we doing to prevent that reoccurrence? How effective is it? Have we put something into place and returned back to see how it's being, the effectiveness of it? Have we seen things that we addressed last year that have come back up and we've seen a negative trend with them again this year? Our biggest trends with regards to MCOR UK, with regards to accidents and incidents, are industry-wide, slips, trips and falls, and we have working at height, we have manual handling, we have a number of other areas where we see larger trends than what we would do on other accidents and incidents. And our focus this year has been just never-ending on trying to really pick up on a slip, a trip and a fall from a singular aspect. This will continue into 2024, and really understanding what are we doing, how are we doing, what are we doing in order to mitigate this. In fact, we've gone out to a third party through our insurers who's worked with the HSE in better understanding slips, trips and falls. So, and that's something that I'm looking forward to receiving the feedback from and working with the rest of the teams and the organisations, because there will be quite a training output from that. But it's something that we've, an initiative that we've picked up and moved with in order to try and reduce that trend, because that is the so what that sits behind that increased stat that we will provide to our leadership team. Proactive, preventative workplace environment, physical and psychological risk. These are all things that we've been talking about earlier on. And as I say, we continue with our Be There for Life framework and proactive, preventative reporting, the observations, the near misses, the stop culture, the trust that if someone stops because they feel that they are at risk or they feel that the activity which they are undertaking leads to risk, then they are empowered to stop. And that is something that we will continue to instill as we go through this journey which we're on at the moment. And that, I think, just on 3 minutes. So, and that is me. Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much. Yeah, some really interesting and insightful content there. I like the safety moment at the start and the sort of clear distinction about those leading and lagging indicators. But for us, you know, we live and breathe a lot of this stuff. I think the key points for me were, and you made this reference a few times, was around that sort of collaboration, working with and not people for us, you know, working with people, and it's all built upon good communications, which is a really obvious but quite important point. So thank you once again. No questions have popped up, so that's a good thing. We've obviously covered everything off that we need to. I guess on that basis, if there is no questions or other chat that I can see and nothing's coming in from Julie, I guess it just leaves me to say thank you once again. I really appreciate that. And for those on the call, a very safe, healthy Christmas, Happy New Year, and of course, look forward to seeing everybody in 2024. On that note, Chris, I'll invite you to leave. I'll leave. Goodbye and see you soon.